Hello and welcome to Wellywood Wargaming's podcast. We are here in episode 0 as we lift off here with my co-hosts to either side. We have...
My name is Glyn.
And we have...
I'm Rob.
And we are good to go in this exciting specialist games podcast branch of Wellywood Wargaming. You'll be familiar with me if you've watched any of the YouTube channel, of course, but now I've got help and much needed help. And we're going to... launch into this with a sort of episode 0, I suppose. We think it's a good idea to do this, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes, but this is really just to sort of highlight what the show is going to be about, what we're all about, what makes us tick, what gives us the willies. Can I say that? And really, yeah, just what's in store for you. I'm really excited about this, of course. First and foremost, actually, I just really want to thank the patrons. I'm a Patreon and they're patrons.
Yes.
Yeah, because without you, this wouldn't actually be happening, so I wouldn't be able to actually have this kit and this gear, so long may it continue. But yeah, let's just start off by introducing these guys, because probably know who I am if you have watched the channel before. If not, we'll save me till last, perhaps. But let's start with Glyn here. How did you get into the hobby in terms of specialist games and Warhammer and Games Workshop and stuff? And yeah, what do you... Tell us all about it.
so I'm, I guess, in the terms of the hobby, I'm a bit of a newbie. I'm only 4 years into the hobby now. One of those ones I kind of grew up going to Games Workshop in my young teenagers, and they always say these games are for kids, but who the hell can afford it when they're that young? So obviously I'm in my mid-30s, and I finally got into the hobby and dived straight in. And that kind of... Next thing you know, I've got a closet full of models that I still haven't painted, and there we are.
So you're one of those then?
I'm one of those. I pretend I base paint something. I'm like, now this is painted, so now I can move on to the next hobby.
Priming is a success in its own right.
It is, yeah. Well, is it? I don't know. I think finish a job. Finish a job.
Well, technically it's painted.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
All works in progress.
So what are your main sort of passions in the hobby? Are you more of a gamer or a painter, or what is it that sort of makes you tick the most with the hobby? What makes you happiest about it all?
Well, I think that the thing that drew me to the hobby the most was the social aspect. So I guess maybe the gaming part would be the closest thing, because like the idea of just catching up with people, throw some dives, have a beer, have some snacks. Yeah, I love that the most. But obviously, like everyone else, I love all aspects of the hobby. Yeah.
Would you say on a percentage scale, you're more of a hobbyist or more of a gamer?
Oh, definitely a hobbyist. I'm not a person... I grew up playing sports. I was never competitive, and nor am I competitive now.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm always a narrative player rather than a full gamer.
Awesome. And which sort of systems and games do you think... what drew you into it first? Which game were you playing first before anything else?
Oh, so the first game I got into was Age of Sigmar when it was still 2nd edition. I believe I came in, I think, about a year after it came out. I found some very interesting rules that happened in the first edition, such as if you had the largest mustache, you got a second turn or something like that. Some really weird rules.
Sounds a bit beardy.
Yes. So that's why I grew my beard out, and I didn't have an advantage once the 2nd edition came out. But no. So I came in with that. I kind of always grew up enjoying fantasy and sci-fi, things like that, but Age of Sigmar drove me in. I love the models, and I soon found out that that's where my love of chaos started. Yeah. And it grew straight to Khorne.
Once a helot, always a helot, they say. What do they? I think they probably do.
Maybe.
Hard to help with
it. Awesome. And what about you, Rob?
I think if Glyn considers himself fresh, I'd say he's more the ganger to my Juve. So
how do you mean? That's a Necromunda
I'm about
thing there.
9 months in.
Right, 9.
So,
is that really
yes.
it? 9 months.
Well,
fresh as a baby. I did have a stint back when I was a teenager, back 96, 98.
Yeah.
Mainly bought White Dwarf, as you said, Glyn. Couldn't really afford.
Were you kind of a lurker?
Never played a game back then.
Yeah.
I think my first miniatures were a set of Chaos Warriors.
Yeah.
I got the Mordheim box set when that came out. That was fantastic.
Nice.
But mainly I used to just pore over the artwork and the photos and the stories from White Dwarf.
Awesome. And what's your main sort of passion in it now? Then, do you think which systems do you prefer, and sort of what are you getting out of the hobby at the moment?
I'm a big fan of the lore.
Yeah,
actually, just the world building that it does.
Yeah,
and it's probably a secondary aspect is scenery a lot.
Yeah,
like I find myself just constantly going back onto Pinterest, Instagram, just like browsing different makers and just seeing what they've come up with. That's really awesome. So definitely hobby aspect, far more than the gaming aspect.
I mean, for 9 months in, he's pretty keen, isn't he?
You're already further in it than I am.
You kind of have to see the stuff that you've been working on. I suppose we'll showcase that at some point. But the first thing I saw that you did was the Orlok gang box cigar. It's like a cigar case. I'll describe it. It's like a cigar case, and it's like you built the interior to look like it's the walls of the hive and stuff, and then he's got the sort of magnetic strips attached. You want to just explain it?
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It's actually a person, Nikki Grillet, who actually very grimdark.
Oh, you stole it?
No. Homage, if you will.
Inspired.
Inspired.
Yeah.
They'd made a collection of boxes, but super, Blanchesque, like very dark. More dioramas rather than like something utilitarian. And I think the main thing I came across is some dude had made one for his Delac gang, and it was like top post on the Necro Reddit.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I was just like browsing cool shit and found out, I'm like, that is awesome. I definitely want to make myself one of those.
Yeah, really cool.
Well, you turned your carrying case into a walking diorama.
Yeah, well, I've got to have fun with it, right?
Diorama.
Meanwhile, mine just walks around in a plastic box with maybe some bubble wrap at best.
I was trying to fit it small on the bike. I think that was, I wanted something really compact.
Yeah, and I won't mention the other stuff that you've done because probably not allowed to. But, obviously, you're pretty keen into Mordheim and Necromunda.
Getting into the hobby, yep, sporting it.
Yeah, in particular. All right, well, that was fairly brief from you two, wasn't it, I suppose?
I can go into more depth.
How did I get into the hobby, I suppose? Oh, yeah, you can go into more
No. Where did you start?
Where did I start? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
The power of candlelight.
It's actually really interesting because I was thinking about this the other day because no one's ever really asked me that question before. No one's ever asked me any questions because no one's that interested in me generally. But
You've been Blood Bowl, were you?
Yes, actually, yeah. So that's a good place to start, I suppose. So I think I had a cool cousin. He wasn't cool at all because I was a kid.
He was cool at the time.
Because he was a goth, right? I'm not saying goths aren't cool. Don't listen to that. But when I was a kid, I thought goths were really cool. And I was really, really young. I was probably about 5 or 6 at the time, and I really looked up to my older cousin, who was a few years older than me. He was a teenager, really cool. He dressed all in black, and he was into like cool stuff. And he had White Dwarf magazine in his bedroom and stuff. And I used to go over there and sort of leaf through all his stuff. And I saw miniatures, and I saw all this stuff, and that really was that incited the sort of fantasy in my mind, I suppose. And I got into it through him. So when he sort of became too cool for school and kind of grew out of that stuff, I suppose, he handed it all down to me, and I sort of just poured over these really old copies of White Dwarf magazine in the 80s. We're going back a bit now. And I think my first true love was the original Jess Goodwin Skaven 2nd edition Blood Bowl team that I saw advertised in White Dwarf magazine in red and yellow paint schemes. Half of the team were yellow, half the team were red. I've still got those miniatures, and they're still painted up in the same scheme, I think, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. But prior to that, I had played some Judge Dredd stuff, Mega Blocks and whatnot. I can't remember what it was called.
Mega Blocks?
Yeah, there was there was a hexagonal game on a sort of grid that you played, and it was affiliated to Games Workshop, but it wasn't actually a Games Workshop product, but it was Judge Dredd stuff. I don't know if you had Judge Dredd stuff in Australia much, but 2000 AD was a really very popular comic back in the day, British comic.
The comic came over, yep.
Yeah, and Judge Dredd came out of that, I think. I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Dredd was from the comics.
But the first sort of game I played was actually 1st edition Blood Bowl, because, again, I inherited a set of 1st edition Blood Bowl, which came with cardboard miniatures, and that was it. There was a few miniatures released with it, but... Yeah, anyway, fast forward years and years and years. I used to there wasn't a Games Workshop in my city, actually, so my dad used to take me to the local sort of hobby store, which had like a few blister packs and stuff. So I used to spend my pocket money on that. And the guy that ran the shop always thought I was stealing. Probably was, actually, but yeah. And then when we finally got a Games Workshop store in Cambridge, which is where I'm from, it became like a real sort of place to hang out. So I spent a lot of my whole days and evenings in the local Games Workshop store with all my mates, and between playing games of Warhammer and whatnot, we'd be out roaming the streets and eating sweets and lollipops and things like that. And to be honest, it kept me out of trouble from the sort of neighbourhood that I grew up in. So it was actually quite a good sort of almost like a youth club, really. And the poor staff at the Games Workshop were kind of like a second family to me, and we probably annoyed the shit out of them if there's any of them listening out there at the moment. But they were kind of like a second family for us, and a bunch of sort of misfit kids got together, and we became really good mates, and that's where that started, I suppose. And I wasn't a particularly popular kid, so I think none of those kids were. So we all became friends through the hobby, and spent every day on the painting table learning things from the staff. And pouring through all the books, because they used to let me actually look through the books. I don't know if Games Workshop staff let you do that anymore. Like, you've got to buy that, you can't look through it.
I remember spending many an evening just after school, going to a local hobby store and just reading my dwarf.
Yeah, I mean,
buy one once a month, and that was all I could afford. But
Unfortunately, my mum, chucked out all of my Warhammer stuff because obviously I came of age similar to my cousin did. As a teenager, I discovered girls, drugs, things like that, naturally, and I was kind of a bit ashamed of being a geek, so I kind of just drifted away from the hobby a little bit, and then came back to it after I'd had my own kids, I suppose. Similar sort of age that you are both now as well. We're all the same sort of age, I suppose, but. And then when you get a bit older, it's kind of like you just don't really care about how you're perceived by others anymore. Yep. It's kind of like, I actually saw, I've actually missed this in my life for quite a few years. I've missed having a hobby. There's been a hole inside me that's actually kind of missed the creativity and the social aspect as well. Particularly, I think anyone who gets into the hobby, sounds like a sort of cult, doesn't it, I suppose? But
it is.
Anyone, it is. It is. It's, but anyone who gets into the hobby, I think, is usually quite a creative person. I don't think there are many of you who aren't creative in nature. Do you think?
I think there are some who are more tactical, strategic players. Who aren't
definitely
interested in painting up their army or looking at the aesthetics. Maybe not so much in Necro or Mordheim or those more narrative-driven games, but a couple of them out there.
You're not one of those, though, are you? You're covering all bases.
Hopeless at strategy.
Yeah.
Oh God, no. Yeah. That's why I like Chaos, because you just dive headfirst to wherever you're going to, and that's all you have to worry about. It's great.
So you play Chaos on every system, pretty much.
Every system. I actually started with Delark, and then I discovered you actually could play Chaos, and so now I'm switching to Chaos
with Necromunda.
With Necromunda, yeah.
Oh, so that's worth mentioning. So that's kind of where we're from, I suppose. But it's worth mentioning how we met, I suppose. So we met. I just moved to Melbourne not that long ago. 3-4 months ago. And I reached out on Facebook and stuff and saw that there was going to be a gaming club in the area called Axes and Ales in Thornbury. So shout out to those guys. You help out. Are you kind of on the committee or something? Or
I'm the VP.
What's the VP?
Vice President.
Oh, I didn't actually know that. So.
There we are.
Vital person.
Vital person, yeah. Okay. So that's you. You're the guy that founded it, sort of thing? Or?
Oh, no, I didn't found it. That was it was founded by a guy called Viv, who runs a thing called Knights of Dice, which is MDF terrain. Right. Fantastic. So he founded that years ago, and we used to actually catch up down at the brewery called Tall Boy and Moose.
Tall Boy and Moose.
Yep.
Shout out to Tall Boy and Moose.
Up in Thornbury. Very good beers, very delicious. Good kitchen. We used to that used to be every Thursday or Wednesday, and that went going. And then obviously leading up to kind of the pandemic, and then things kind of shut down a bit. And then we shut down for a year. Then kind of a committee came together and tried to have that going again. And we've kind of got a couple of it's now been like 3 years now, or 2 years since we started running this club up again down in Thornbury Bowls Club.
Pretty recent then. 3 years? I was imagining it was, like decade old.
Oh, no, it's only about, the actual club is about 5 or 6 years old, as in like kind of the origins, but the actual kind of the current iteration of it is only kind of that pandemic.
Third edition?
Third edition. Yeah, let's say third edition. Everyone likes third edition, apparently.
Yeah, cool.
Nah, second here. I mean, just to describe Axes and Ales, I mean, coming from Wellington in New Zealand, which is a very small place with not many people, we had a pretty good little gaming club called Miramar Freebooters. So shout out to Miramar Freebooters, which was in the Roxy Cinema, Peter Jackson's little cinema, I think.
Yeah, that's
something
cool.
to do with Peter Jackson anyway. There's a Gandalf statue outside. It's pretty cool. But it was in a restaurant area. It was quite small. I thought that was great at the time. But then coming here and being genuinely a little bit concerned that I wouldn't meet new people, that I wouldn't have the same sort of crew and group that I had in Wellington, and being a little bit sort of disheartened by the whole thing, I came to Axes and Ales and I went in the first Tuesday night to just look around. And Glyn was actually the first person I met there. You were very friendly and affable, and I thought, this guy's really nice, And I immediately thought, hey, I need to do a podcast with this guy.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
But you were playing 40k, I believe.
Yep.
And I just kind of came over and was like, what are you doing? How you playing? And everybody was super friendly. And it's at a bowls club. We didn't mention that. It's at a bowls club, Thornbury Bowls Club. And it's like a bar, like an old school pub, I suppose, with a bowling green out at the side.
Classic Australiana bowls club.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got, space for about, how many tables have we
About
got?
30 odd. I think we've got like nearly 20 odd 6x4s, then a ton of smaller tables for all your blood bowls and kill teams.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are places out there that have got equally or even bigger spaces and amazing stuff, but I was pretty blown away by it. I thought, this is incredible, you know. Over here we had someone playing 40k. On another table we had someone playing, what was it, Game of Thrones battle game.
Oh,
I was
Song
like,
of Fire
wow,
and
that's
Ice.
cool, yeah. And then there was people playing Infinity, all sorts of different games, Adeptus Titanicus, mainly Games Workshop stuff, I suppose, generally. A lot of 40k players.
A lot of like Legion, a couple of things like that. And then there's people who play some of the old school kind of games, like Napoleonic games or
Bolt Action as well.
Marvel?
There's Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Yeah. Blood Bowl, of course, as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I was kind of taken aback by just how buzzing it was and how, it's going to sound weird, but how normal everybody was as well.
Yeah.
Good normie ratio.
Yeah, like everybody's pretty norm, which is cool. And I think everybody's like, everybody works a lot and everybody has their own thing, but then they go there every Tuesday night and have a blowout. And it's really well run, so thanks for that. But I just thought, coming in that first time, just having a look, I stayed for hours just watching people playing games, and it was really nice.
Well, that was
I saw you lurking.
Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Did I meet you then?
Yeah, I think you were just standing behind me, just breathing heavily.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah.
I mean, that was always the vibe of the original iteration of that. I said, I think it's having it at a brewery originally was that kind of vibe you have anyway, because like you go into the pub, and that's why we had it at the Thornbury Bowls Club, because we wanted to have it at a pub. We didn't have it at a hall, because there's something about it being at a pub. It's just, like I said, we wanted to emphasize, I think when we initiated the redux of this, we wanted to emphasize
Is it not
that
redo?
The redux.
Okay. Okay.
Makes it a bit more.
I thought it was redo.
No, it makes it a bit more theatrical.
Okay, yeah.
We wanted to emphasize, we call it a tabletop gaming social club.
Yeah.
And we wanted to, like, the social part was the most important part of it.
Yeah.
We wanted to emphasize.
Genuinely, like, I've been to tournaments and events and cons and whatnot, and some of them have been quite antisocial. This was really refreshing, It was quite nice to have that. And then we sort of met. How else did we meet? I suppose I'm a Necromunda guy, obviously.
I think I jumped on that Facebook post that you posted.
Did you?
Said, hey man.
Yeah, I think you did.
Jump on this Discord.
I think you were one of the first person I spoke to on Discord. So we got chatting like that. And then when we played the first Necromunda game against each other.
That was my first Necro game.
Yeah, so sort of a bit of coaching. It was a fun, light-hearted game. And I think
you didn't slaughter me, but you tabled me the next game.
So I was playing. What was I playing? I don't know what I was playing.
You played your Enforcers, wasn't it?
No, we were having a test game. So I was playing Outcasts with a psychic leader.
That's right, on that tower in the middle.
Yeah. And you ambushed me, and you were playing Orlocks, and it was kind of like a sort of like a trainer game, I suppose, for you, and just a sort of run out for my gang idea, which I ended up not going with.
It kind of sucked,
kind of boring. Yeah, it kind of sucked. Yeah, but you were kind of just learning the ropes, really. Like you already, you got a
stood
good
there and shot guns.
Yeah, you got a good brain for like learning mechanics pretty quickly. But I think there was one point in the game where you were just like, because I kept saying it's a 3-up, yeah, that's a 5-up, yeah, and you were like, just let me figure it out, all right? Because I'm like, I'm just have this sort of like instant.
Just show me the table, and then
yeah. I think you did that during Mordheim as well, and I was like, shit, yeah, sorry, just stop me if I'm getting carried away. But so that was cool. And then I'd already met you at the club before then. And then you joined the Necromunda campaign as well. We had how many players did we have in the Necromunda campaign?
11, maybe.
Yeah, 10 or 11. That's pretty good. That was a Dominion campaign.
I think the first game of my of the campaign, that was my second ever game of Necromunda. I played one thing on the Sunday, and on the Tuesday I was playing my second game ever, and
Yeah, but you got into it really quickly as well. And you were playing Delac, and I was playing Bad Zone Enforcers, and you were playing Orlocks.
Yeah, love the Orlocks. Love my bikies.
And here we are today. So I suppose we all met over Necromunda being the first sort of the main thing that I talk about a lot on the YouTube channel, but not the main thing that we're going to necessarily talk about here. So it's worth kind of highlighting exactly what we're doing here and what exactly the channel's all about, or the podcast is about, in fact. And it's really just reiterating the specialist games element of things. we are going to be doing specialist games from, right back to the 80s to the beginning, like I mentioned, with even if we can, unofficial games like the Judge Dredd thing that I mentioned, and Dark Future, cool. and things like that. So we're going to highlight each episode. We're going to do, sort of focus on a different game, how to get into it, how you might find out more about it, in terms of modeling, in terms of gaming, in terms of meeting other people that are into it as well, in the wider community as well, and generally just highlight stuff that's been a bit forgotten, perhaps, like some old gems like Battlefleet Gothic that I was actually playing last week, right up to the new stuff like Warcry and Kill Team. Because to be honest, I'm the old school one out of us three, in terms of the stuff that I've played. So I've played a lot of the older games. You haven't. You've played a lot more of the newer games like Kill Team. You've played a lot of Kill Team. You've played a lot of Kill Team. Yep. I played no Kill Team. I think I played the first edition, and I hated it.
Yeah, it wasn't. You go.
Yeah, but say the old Kill Team was just here's the 8th edition 40k, but just smaller scale, and it doesn't quite convert across. But the new Kill Team is fantastic. Yeah,
and I was just actually going to ask you. Actually, I was going to proposition you for a game of Kill Team perhaps next week. I don't know.
There we go. He's a live proposition.
Yeah, I mean, oh look, we've got buttons. There we go. It's about time I brought in the buttons. I'm going to be bringing in the buttons just slowly but surely. I don't want to alarm anybody too much, but there are a lot of buttons here on this console. I'll be bringing them in as we get more and more comfortable with this whole setup. So so that's cool. So that's kind of what we're going to be
doing.
Kill
Team, though, on fire.
You like it?
I do like it. I don't love it. I like the more narrative aspect of like Necro more, but popularity-wise, I think it's gone through the stratosphere. Like it came out. I feel like it came out as a bit of an intro to 40k, and I was like, I really don't want to invest in like armies
in 40k.
Yeah, but I'm happy to buy a box set with 2 teams, standalone teams. But just seeing the popularity of it all around, I think it's exceeded everyone's expectations.
Well, similar to Necromunda, where the fact you can just get a game going with only 10 models, and it gives you an opportunity to paint something different or whatever you want to actually get sorted, you can do that. Whereas, like, obviously getting to a large scale game, like, you don't want to spend like hundreds of dollars trying to paint 40 models that you're never going to paint. Whereas if you've got that inspiration to paint something smaller, I find it's far more inspiring to paint those smaller ones together. Yeah,
exactly. And that's kind of what the specialist games are all about, really, is accessibility. They're easier to get started and they're easier to invest in, and you don't need shitloads of money to do it. You can do it through 3D printing as well, which we have done a lot of.
You just say you don't have to invest much money, but once you get into the specialist hobby, that Necromunda, you need 1 or 2 couple of pieces of terrain.
I was like, Kill Team. Don't need to invest much. I've got like 14 Kill Teams.
Yeah, right. Well, that's because the miniatures are quite frankly beautiful.
They look amazing.
Kill Team, should I say? But yeah, I haven't had an interest in Age of Sigmar ever.
I would put it down. I would say it's probably one of the best rule sets of a larger scale game.
Stop it.
Very streamlined.
Stop it.
It's fantastic, but I rarely get to play it.
Why is that? As in, there's no one to play with?
Oh, no, there are people to play with, but then obviously regarding the club, and I'm far more of a narrative-driven person. Like we run Crusades, which is the 40k narrative one, which I love, and then move on to Kill Team that has a narrative. Now Necromunda, which is all narrative. Age of Sigmar does have that, and they have a very good rule set for the narrative. But again, it was like, I guess people in the club, majority are, if you're playing larger scales, they are that. But again, that's why I go back to Chaos, where you have the Chaos Demons that works with everything. So I'm constantly building all games. So
smart.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say about Age of Sigmar, though, it's just the lore has absolutely no appeal to me whatsoever, and I think that's because I'm institutionalized by Old Hammer and like Warhammer Fantasy. For me, I grew up with it, and like to suddenly just break it completely into dust and then try and reform it into this new package, which I just fucking hate.
But I think the problem with Age of Sigmar is it started not great by destroying what previously was. Yeah. Which I'm probably a new person. From what I looked at, it kind of needed to happen. It was a power creep that all of a sudden this world became so over the top. It kind of needed that.
Do you mean mechanics-wise and rule set, or you mean
both?
Lore?
Both. Okay. I at least going back, obviously me. The best side is I'm now getting fully into the lore with those Total War games, and obviously me looking back and things like that. They're all there.
Well, at least Total War's keeping it going.
Yeah, it keeps it going, and then it looks like obviously bringing it back on top of that as well. But I find interesting with the Age of Sigmar one is it's being rebuilt in a way similar to 40,000, where the worlds and realms are so big that you can make your own story. You can make if you say there's like one part of the army, there could be something that's very vastly different compared to this one. Nothing's kind of set a bit more in stone, even though there is the narrative part of the original. It's less strict, I suppose. Yes, and so you can have things where you can have some things where narratively you could say this is, say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. So obviously there's different realms. There's realm of life, death, everything like that. So you can have almost like an undead. So it's basically the multiverse. Yes. And so you can have like say if I'm running Khorne, I can have the Khorne army, but it's from the realm of death. So I can model it almost undead. Models like that. And so you can model your thing saying, these are the realms they're from, so I can do whatever I want with this. And here's this theme. It's giving you the tools to make the army whatever you want it to be. Yeah.
Potentially blank canvas. And
that's the best thing about it. And the actual whole concept of the realms is the realms are constantly expanding, as in the actual physical realms. And so it's one of those ones where they can always expand. And that's where it gets interesting. And I think they started off terribly, and I think people didn't like it when they had the Stormcast, where they were like, "Oh, these are the Marines." They are basically Marines, aren't they? But they're actually incredibly interesting now because they've developed those characters now. They actually suffer from depression and amnesia. So every time they get rebuilt, a bit of their soul actually goes. Well, yeah, but that's because in fantasy Oldhammer, mental health didn't exist back then. Yes, of course. You know. You have a grudge, you put it into a book. True. And then bury it deep and never forgive anyone.
Do you think that touches on, I think, sorry, so I can go a little bit deep here. I feel like that touches on a little bit of the spirit, like the character behind like the GW franchise of games. As in there always was a little bit of sorrow, a little bit of darkness. Yeah. You've sort of got like grim dark movements where it was super dark and super gothic. There's always a little bit of that,
Well, I think that's probably what's lacking, at least from my perspective, in some of the newer stuff.
At face value, definitely.
Yeah, face value. So maybe that's why they're trying to inject it now, because it's lacking it.
Yeah, I was looking at Sigma at face value. I was like, oh, is this a bit more like WoW-like, for example?
Yeah. I mean, just to reiterate, we are a specialist games. Guys, you know, we don't want to be just moaning about Age of Sigmar.
Warcry is also in the same universe.
Well, this is it. Warcry has come out of Age of Sigmar, and I actually haven't played it, but I've watched a lot of games, and I fucking love the miniatures, and I really want to play it. But yeah, on the flip side of that, 40k as well. I was just going to say about 40k again. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I'm personally not really that into the current lore of 40k. Like, it's changed a lot since I was playing 2nd edition and Rogue Trader, even before that, because I was when you used to have to roll D100s for mutation tables and things like that. Anyway, yeah, the lore's changed a little bit. I don't know. It used to be dark, even darker, I think, even darker than it is now. But then again, Kill Team's come out of it, Necromunda's come out of it, and you've got these smaller scale skirmish games, I suppose, which have come out of it and are far easier to get into. Usually have really interesting and cool mechanics that are all very different from each other. Like, you can't compare Kill Team and Necromunda; they're utterly different games,
completely different.
But both really enjoyable, I'm sure.
I think those thematic undertones and how they've evolved is probably a nature of success.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about 90s or early 90s, like the actual, following of Games Workshop was a lot smaller.
Yeah, it was
massive,
it was.
especially COVID. It's like it's big business. It's getting pretty mainstream. I think it needs to appeal to a larger audience.
It's huge, and you know what? It's funny. Like, I'm a barber. I cut hair during the day, and the amount of people that because I used to not tell people what I did for my hobby. I'm like, so what do you get up to in your spare time to people, and they I don't really do much. Don't really do much. I just sort of watch TV with the missus and that. And they're like, "What are you up to?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I'm going to a miniatures game night tonight." And I try and explain it all to them, and they're like, 9 times out of 10, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool, like Warhammer," and they actually know what I'm talking about. Yeah. 10 years ago, nobody knew what I was talking about. So you're right. Like, it has become far more mainstream. And I'm not quite sure how and why, but I think there's a few factors. The first factor is Henry Cavill. So shout out to Henry Cavill, because he's basically made Warhammer. Like, he's a handsome guy who's also into Warhammer. Just like me, I'm a handsome guy as well. So suddenly people are like, shit, well, if a mainstream celebrity can do this, then I can come out of the closet and get involved.
I think generational shift as well.
Yep.
Ultimately, like you look at, comic Marvel movies.
Yeah, true.
The genre for cinema these days.
Yeah.
15 years ago and before wasn't a thing, you know.
No.
Like, it's only Batman who can make it in Hollywood.
Yeah. So science fiction and fantasy have become more mainstream, I suppose.
Yeah, totally.
And I think Harry Potter was part of that as well. I remember when the first Harry Potter book got released. Prior to that, there was a huge gap between kids reading fantasy like Tolkien back in the day and going to read, and C.S. Lewis and whatnot, to reading Harry Potter, you know, and then becoming, popularizing fantasy, I suppose, was a big thing. And then I guess currently you have, Netflix shows like, what's it called? Stranger Things. You know, they play Dungeons and Dragons in Stranger Things, and it's like nerd chic, I suppose.
Retro.
You know what I mean? Yeah, the whole retro appeal, I suppose, to now everybody's playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's mad. Mm-hmm. Like you speak to people and they're like, I don't know about Warhammer, but yeah, I do play Dungeons and Dragons every week. And it's like really like normal people playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I never thought that would be the case.
Well, I think not one of the huge things as well. Like I'm not speaking like I know anything about generations, things like that. But obviously there was like our generation thing where the tech thing came through. Like everything has to be screens. I'm on my screens and like that. Whereas the next generation coming through is more tactile compared to what we actually were. And I think the idea of board games, miniatures, hands-on things that are actually socially in person is a far more important thing these days. I think especially after, again, the pandemic, you're realising like in-person interactions is so much better than video, and we were stuck with that for a couple of years. So
also our generation are the parents now.
True.
And I think we're seeing the difference of, all right, a lot of us gamers or, have done a lot of gaming, and we're like, no, we want to bond with our kids, or, slightly older peeps want to bond with their children, want to do it in a physical way.
Yeah. It's interesting actually. When I got back into the hobby, I don't know if it was as huge as it is now. When I got back into the hobby about 7 years ago, when I first moved, when I moved to New Zealand, I got back into the hobby because I was like, what am I going to do? I haven't got any mates really. I don't know anybody here. How am I going to meet new people? I guess I'll try and get into Blood Bowl again. I've always had I've been looking at it from a distance, thinking, I'm playing the computer game, thinking, shit, I wish I could play the board game again. So I got in touch with the New Zealand Blood Bowl people. Long story short, ended up playing lots of tournaments and stuff after that. But it's funny, actually, you say the generational thing as well, because one of my closest friends in the Wellington Blood Bowl League, Ramchop, shout out, his son, he trained his son up to be a Blood Bowl player, and his son ended up being, no offense, but his son ended up being a much better player than Chop, and winning lots and lots of tournaments and things as well. So shout out Mushroomy as well.
It's a good way to teach the kid that life's unfair and disappointing every time you play Blood Bowl.
It was quite funny watching it. You go to a tournament and it would always be father and son. They'd always be they'd always be pitted against each other at one stage in the tournament, and it's just funny, but really nice as well. Like, and I kind of, I always hope that Lito will grow up and want to play games with me as well. That would be nice. Yeah. So there you go. What else? I'm looking at you.
Yeah. What else? What else has been happening?
What else has been happening? Yeah.
I saw something pretty cool on the live stream this week.
Oh yeah, that's worth talking about actually. So we had the Adepticon this week. This is episode 0. We were really just going to give a highlight of what it's all about. But we had Adepticon, didn't we, this week? And we've had loads of other stuff actually outside of Adepticon. But early on in the week, we had a Necromunda thing, which is worth talking about. We had this the next book, the next campaign book, which looks interesting. I did a video on that quickly.
I've been trying to rapidly read through Sindrak Burning at the moment.
Yeah, I'm reading through it at the moment. And some of the scenarios are really great in that one. But the new book doesn't look like it's got a huge amount of content. It looks like it's mainly lore. So it's kind of your book. If you like the lore, then it's your book. But I like the numbers and the stuff and the details and the rules, and they're not in there by the looks of it. They might be. I don't know. I need to get a copy of it. But
I reckon there'll be a few surprises maybe. Not that I don't have any inside word, but the characters, the dramatist personality they mentioned, they've already got rules out there in the wild. So there's going to be something extra, I think.
Yeah. But then later on we had Adepticon. When was that? 2 days ago here, our time?
Yesterday.
Something like
that.
Was it
yesterday?
Yeah.
It's yesterday. And there's some good looking stuff out. What did you see?
Wow. The lion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. I don't want to talk about it too much.
The lion? No, I saw Tywin Lannister.
Yes, that is very much,
I mean, it's you have to, we're not going to talk about 40k too much, but we're going to talk about the lore, I suppose we have to, because we're invested in the lore. And the lion's come back into the fold, which is pretty cool. I don't know where the current lore is with the lion or where he's been. Hasn't he been sleeping on the rock or something?
Under the rock?
He was kind of, I think he was hit. I mean, I am not a person who knows enough about the Dark Angels.
He's the first Primarch. We should probably know about the first Primarch.
Yeah, but he's not Chaos, so it doesn't really matter too much.
Or is he?
Or is
That's
he?
the thing about the Dark Angels.
He's still wearing that black armor.
Yep. Yep. Obsidian. But yeah, fantastic looking miniature. I mean, shit.
Amazing.
It's
those two watchers carrying the
yeah.
Oh,
I kind of want the watchers because the watchers are basically Jawas.
Yes, 100%.
I think there will be by the end of all these Dark Angels releases, there probably will be enough watchers to make a Necromunda gang out of them, and that's what I'm going to do. Awesome. A gang of Jawas to go with my Ashwaste Nomads.
You could also just go to Star Wars Legion and get a bunch of Jawas as well from that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Different scale though, different scale. But yeah, the Lion came out. I don't know if you're into Dark Angels. Are you into Dark Angels?
I mean, I like Dark Angels. I think in terms of
Angels fan more.
Yeah, I like the Flesh Terrors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chaos.
Yeah. It's like it's like corn, not corn.
Yeah.
Blood for the blood for the Emperor. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was the Lion. I mean, the Lion. Yeah, just an incredible model. Better than Guilliman, I believe. I mean, Guilliman's an older model now, but I still think
it's far better. I feel like that Guilliman one was their first go at having another Primarch.
Still amazing.
Oh, still amazing. Don't get me wrong, but like that is very much more refined, especially after they got that Abaddon miniature that came through. Then now this.
So anyway, the Lion's back in the lore. I'm sure there'll be loads of Black Library novels on the Lion and stuff now. He hasn't got the most charisma, has he? He's a bit like Stannis Baratheon.
From what I understand, he's a bit of a twat.
He's a bit of a dick.
Oh, really?
Like, no offense to anyone who's a crazy first chapter.
I mean offense.
Kind of person, but he's not that interesting in the books, is he? Really? Well, I don't think so. Anyway,
I haven't read them. So
anyway,
no idea.
But that was that. We had the Lion, and that's a huge thing for 40k. The other huge thing, of course, is there's a new version of 40k. So the next edition of 40k is coming out, but we don't want to give that too much time either. But it does mean that we'll probably have other things coming off that, whether we have new versions of other specialist games branching off of 40k. Quite possibly.
Well, I think the key part of that announcement, which I guess is kind of goes down the specialist route, it means boarding action is still supported for the next edition.
Yeah. So what is boarding actions? Because I don't really know enough about it.
So boarding actions is essentially kind of a stripped down version of 40,000, Warhammer 40k.
Inventory only, right?
No, not necessarily.
You can't board with a tank, can you?
Well, you can't have a tank, but you can have beasts or other things like that. So it's not just inventory, so you can have other things like that. So essentially, it's just no
dreadnoughts.
No dreadnoughts. How are you going to fit that in a little Galadark?
So beasts, infantry, anything that's less than
essentially, if it's walking on two legs, that's not a giant machine. Yeah, you're pretty good.
Okay.
So essentially, all it is a 500-point game. So for example, I'm running Chaos. So I'm running my Iron Warriors thing, but I've only got 15 models. That's my entire thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's it.
So the thing that confuses me, because I like I said, I haven't played Kill Team, modern iteration of Kill Team at all, and really at all. And I haven't really played much 40k either. What's the difference between boarding actions and Kill Team?
So Kill Team is its own thing with its own rule set that's completely different. Even the way you roll, they don't have a hit, wound, roll, and all that sort of things like you normally do. Same with the melee, it's completely different. Whereas boarding action is you're using the base rule set of 40k, but you're stripping all stratagems, a lot of the rules, you're keeping things very basic, but it's actually closer to a skirmish game where you have actions like opening doors. Overwatch is an action which you do after your movement. It's very much like...
Well, that's like old Necromunda.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And so it kind of runs a bit more like that. And a lot of how you do the objectives and how they're adding things to the White Dwarfs at the moment, a lot of the maps are very narrative driven. And it is all in a Zomatalis, like close quarters board.
Yeah, cool.
It's not just open things. So it's very much... It's kind of like if they made Space Hulk into a game. Like as in like a war game rather than just kind of a war game.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing that makes me think about is that I was playing Battlefleet Gothic the other day, last week, playing Battlefleet Gothic, which is the spaceship game, kind of like Adeptus Mechanicus, but with ships in space. And it's a huge part of the lore, the space battles that you have in the books, certainly in the Horus Heresy novels and things like that. Huge. But the boarding actions part of it is a huge part of the lore as well. And, you know, Space Marines are notorious for boarding stuff. And it makes me think that if they've done boarding actions, surely we could re-release Battlefleet Gothic or something similar, and actually do both things in one campaign.
Yeah.
And doing, you know, mix that up with Adeptus Titanicus, Adeptus Bigus Dickus. We could in Continentia buttocks.
Well, funny talking about those in between things, because the way Crusade works in 40k is compatible with Kill Team. Even though you're running technically 2 teams, the way it kind of runs is you can get points for both. And that means you could also do that with boarding actions. So you could run an entire narrative thing where you have large-scale battles, then you have the breaching in the boarding actions, and then you have a kill team, which is a small specialist skill. So if you wanted to run a large-scale narrative thing, you can do this one little squad that's normally on the big battlefield is then on your little kill team, which is the individuals running around. So if you want to run like big narrative things, you can do that. I think they've really opened that up. I think that's one thing I've enjoyed about the newer editions is they've kind of opened that narrative again.
Yeah, and then at the other end of that, you have the super duper silly version of 40k. What's that called?
Armageddon.
Armageddon. Do people still play that?
Oh yeah, that's still on the previous edition.
Is that just for millionaires?
There was one we did.
You know what Armageddon is?
No. So Armageddon is like, imagine
it's not a specialist game.
So essentially, in a game of 40k, your big competitive, like, you know, a lot of models thing is 2,000 points. So that's your big game with all your tanks, all your toys, everything like that. Armageddon is if you rocked up with 6,000 points. Yeah, and that's like one of your armies, and you might play with 4 people, and they also have 6,000 points. So you're looking at like almost like a a 10,000 to 20,000 point game.
Same minis,
same minis.
Yeah.
But they changed the rules. It's a lot more. The rules are a lot more streamlined. So you're only like you have like say 50 people when you roll 2 dice. That's it.
It looks fun. You see it played at games days and things like that.
We did things recently with our Crusade. One was we played the 40k Crusade, did the whole narrative thing, and at the very end they set up the narrative and played an Armageddon game where people worked out allegiances where they'd stand in an Armageddon and played a large-scale Armageddon game with their Crusade armies coming through and attacking. It was actually quite a good way to just finish it off so everyone gets blown up.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we completely got off topic there. We were talking about the Lion a minute ago, but that's good. But it's worth talking about, you know, the other stuff that came out of Adepticon because
Underworlds. Now, never played it.
Neither. Have you played
Kill
Underworlds?
Team's been doing amazing minis. Warcry's been amazing minis. But as far as like sculpture go, it doesn't get enough credit.
No.
It's beautiful.
I think it's on its way out. I mean, well, I say it's on its way out. It can't be because they've just released a new box.
It's actually quite popular.
I just don't see anyone playing it.
Well, not at our club.
No.
Previously, when we used to play at Torway Moose, like there'd be at least like 3 or 4 games going each time. I think it's not this club.
I think it's very much a beer and pretzel sort of game.
It's you'd see it, and you see
more
it
of
more
a board game.
Oh yeah, it's very much. It's probably closer in common to collectible card games than it
Magic.
Is. Yeah, it's closer to Magic than it actually is. Like say a
there is deck building and like.
There is a whole deck building thing, and you kind of need to collect all the cards and that sort of stuff to it.
Yeah, interesting. But the minis have always been great, and those it's a shame because those boxes seem to be quite limited. Like they'll release them and then they'll be gone quite quickly afterwards.
It does seem to be very much either a supply chain issue or a strategic limited release for one of these.
I think it's called specialist games at Games Workshop.
Yeah, that's just specialist games. But there's been nothing happens with Forge World with that game at all. Never released anything on Forge World with it.
It's kind of like Kill Team. Like you've got a set team.
Yeah, true.
You know, pretty much Kill Team.
You can't alter their weapons or their stats or anything like that.
No, you've probably got like 25% variance per Kill Team.
Yeah,
you've talked to in the meta. There'll be pretty much a way to build that team, give or take a little bit.
Yeah.
And worst case is you'll need a box and a half to make that team, and that's it.
What that's done now is it's highlighted the fact that none of us have played Underworlds and we have no right talking about it. And that we need to do some research.
Looked amazing.
They did.
I'm just loving where they go with that. They're just going off the wall.
All the models. I think because the whole idea is you don't use existing minis, using the new ones. So they've got this open license to make whatever cool model they want based off the existing models.
Yeah.
Again, goes back to like I keep talking about Age of Sigmar, but their models they bring out for that are fantastic.
Oh, they are, but they're like they're like standing on like 1 millimeter thick cloud. I don't know, like they're overly dynamic, if you ask.
Well, it's fantasy.
Yeah, but it's like, it's too much. Like the High Elves when they came out, what were they called? They're not even called High Elves anymore. Fuck it. What are they called?
Oh,
I'm about to table flip. I'm so angry that they're not called high flips anymore.
They're the elves from Hish.
Yeah, that's the one. You know what I mean? Those guys. What are they doing? Like, I don't know. They're just all flying around like I don't know, like an 80s kung fu movie. It's kind of weird.
There's only one model that does that.
Is it? I don't know. They just look too dynamic.
One of the models is amazing, where it's only his armor. That's a really cool model.
That is actually really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no body. Cool. It's just a floating armor, but it's still posed correctly.
Ah, that's cool.
It's like a cross between a Miyazaki film and I don't know what they are, but they're kind of weird. But Underworlds.
Yeah, I think those
we all need to play it.
Potentially my highlight.
Maybe we'll get someone on here who's played a bit of Underworlds because it'd be nice to actually know a bit more about it. Because honestly, off the top of my head, that might be the only hole in our knowledge
Warcry.
combined. Warcry, I think,
Warcry.
yeah.
I think I might pick up that next Underworld set.
I think you should, because it's... I like to pick up the Warcry set with the bloody vampires, isn't it? Jesus.
Oh, no, I'm going to wait for next season. There'll be a next season, next box. I think it's done as rounds.
But this...
I love those models, but for some reason I don't like the bamboo, the current setting.
Yeah,
this range.
It's, I don't know. It works nicely for Mordheim, maybe. You could use it for Mordheim. But... you don't want to take away from Warcry. I'm sure Warcry... I've heard and I've seen and I've watched many battle reports of Warcry, and it's a fantastic game. I really like the mechanics.
Good pace, from what I hear.
Yeah.
So the issue with Warcry when it first came out is it was primarily a chaos cultist game. And what happened is they released...
Kind of still is.
No, they changed it. So there's a recent compendium they released, and they kind of brought everyone together. So there was almost 2 games going where there was the chaos cultists, and then there was the rest of the armies playing. And it was almost 2 different games because the way things were balanced and things like that. But they brought out the compendium last year, was it, I believe?
Yeah, that 2.0 was like the launch of this season, right?
Yeah, and so they overhauled everything.
Last year?
Yeah, and so now everything's kind of in line. So now you can use existing, kind of like Kill Team, you can use existing models from armies, or you could buy these specialist cultists, which all, again, look amazing. I've got the, what are they called? The unclean or what is essentially
the hooks?
No, yeah, the hooks, the ones essentially what they've done. The law is they've cut off the
unmade,
where they've cut off their own faces and things like that.
Yeah. Amazing models. Some of the best models in the entire.
I heard the narrative part of it's actually really got some legs. A lot of people are comparing it to Mordheim.
Well,
the current
I think that was the whole point
version.
with Warcry was that it was supposed to be a bit like Warcry, a bit like Mordheim.
Do you think? I don't.
No.
No,
I think
there was obviously a gap for Mordheim because so many people love Mordheim.
Yeah, I think it's I think they probably saw more like the Kill Team analog. We need a small format skirmish game.
So they actually used to have. They actually did bring out Age of Sigmar Skirmish, and that was interesting. It was like a tiny little booklet thing. It was like you could buy it for $10, wherever it was. And that actually was kind of interesting because that's kind of how I started.
I think I remember that.
I kind of started with that because I just bought like a box and I did built like 5 models, wherever it is.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is you had a single model. It was all about, you had obviously army, you have like units of 10, but each was an individual. And the whole thing was like you build a warlord and you slowly build up your list. And if you win a game, that means you get points. That means you could eventually get this unit and slowly build it up. But it was so baseline and so basic.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this Warcry definitely has a lot more narrative things built into it.
Yeah, Hearts of Gore is the current season. Next one should kick off in a couple of months, I think.
Yeah.
July, August. I'll jump on it.
Well, we're still in the Season of the Beast with Age of Sigmar. So.
Season of the Beast!
I don't know, how cool is it?
Shit, I was going to write a pad there. I missed the pad out, didn't I?
Oh, you just...
I missed the bloody... I don't even look. I've got so many pads in front of me.
Well, how about we record what you just said then and put that into a pad? There we go.
We could do, actually. That'd be nice. This is why I have these guys helping me out. But sadly, there was no Warcry released with Adepticon stuff. There wasn't any Warcry stuff, was there? No new
Warcry
stuff.
was, a month ago? With the vampire dudes?
Yep.
But they were amazing.
Yep.
Oh, my Lord, they were amazing. Like, sort of Japanese-looking vampires. So bloody cool.
The Soulblight they did is so fantastic.
Oh,
especially when they released they kind of moved the vampire thing on its head where you got werewolf vampires.
Yeah, that's hot.
Which is so different to what normal
that makes me.
Yeah,
they're pushing a lot into that Slavic sort of look too, aren't they? They
just a little,
They released one model for, was it for Sigmar? Is it Soulblight Grave?
Oh, was it the babushka?
Yeah.
The little grandma.
Which is a bit like the main vamp in Curse City.
Yeah, the big guy with the wolfy shoulders.
Yeah. Razagarth.
Very cool. Yeah.
That's in circulation again still, by the way, Curse City.
Yes.
It's in Australia release. It's going for a pretty
with
good
all
price.
their expansions?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
they re-released it.
So they re-released it without the models.
No. That was the expansions.
Oh.
Yeah, so they re-released the box set. It was meant to be made to order, but it's been in a whole host of retailers.
Yeah.
And a good price too, like $250 Australian, which is
because I have
like 100 models.
I have Blackstone Fortress, and that was one of the best like games I played in a long while. I love that.
Yeah, that was really cool. But Curse City was just a debacle, what they did with that. Like, it was just silly. And it was so expensive as well. So hardly, even though they only did a small amount.
That's cool, yeah. Maybe we should jump on it. Get it, it's a lot more affordable now. But those expansions, you're right, are model-less.
Yeah, which really is weird, isn't it?
Oh, no. I mean, it's weird, but I think it's one of those ones they already released the models. And I think if you're going to run a vampire army, you would have already owned those models. And I think it looks kind of crap if you're like already running that theme and here's these expansions that or these models you've had for 2 years.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I want to buy it, but I don't want those models.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me to release a cheaper expansion.
Ooh.
Oh, there we are.
I tried to do that under the table, so it wasn't making any noise, but sorry about that.
But yeah, it's essentially so you could just...
My turn now.
go for it.
See,
this
is why I'm professional. I pre-open my drinks so I don't ruin the audio.
Yeah. Good. Well,
meanwhile, I keep putting my drink down and making a knocking sound. But I think it makes the expansions cheaper, so then if you want the models, you can use that. Or
Yeah.
So I can see their reasoning. I prefer it with the model, but...
I mean, it doesn't really matter what they release and how they release it, but people will still buy it because it's Games Workshop.
Yeah, and people still complain about it either way as well.
They'll damn well complain about it.
More models at Adepticon.
Yes, that's what I was going to get back to, guys.
Well, that's what
Beastman.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
In 40k. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Sci-fi
love
Beastman. They haven't released them for fantasy for...
Well,
Yeah,
they have, because I think, and someone, I can't remember, sorry, I forgot your name, but someone commented on my video today on YouTube about these Beastmen that I was hyping about. And they said, these are clearly Age of Sigmar models that they've not used for Age of Sigmar and just stuck a couple of grenades on them. And if you look at them closely, the armor is not sci-fi. The weapons are not sci-fi. The
primal looking savage masses.
There's a couple of things about them that make them look science fiction, but
Couple
they
little,
look like they look like an
and-
afterthought actually. And now I've looked at it again, I've thought, shit, you're right actually. Like they are.
Well, it's interesting because they had the Beastmen in the Blackstone Fortress box, and they actually do look sci-fi.
They do, but they're really weird looking minis. They're okay, but
they do the job.
Yeah, they do the job, but they're not great.
I picked up the Underworld's Beastmen just because they looked amazing. Yeah, and I think they're the only ones that have been released recently outside of Blackstone Fortress.
I got those as well. That's what I made my Goliath gang out of. My Beastman Goliath gang for Necromunda. I also have a Beastman Enforcer gang that played last campaign. But they were beautiful. And what was on the flip side of that for Kill Team? It was
Voltan.
Squats. We'll call them squats.
Squats. Well, they did
vertically challenged fellows.
They had the jetpacks. They got the minigun.
The minigun looks cool.
Yeah.
I particularly like the guy with the two fists. Yeah,
and
really
the black eye. His eyes all punched out already.
What I love about it, it's not even like two power fists. Like, no, they're just,
it's just
dust knuckle.
Brass knuckles. Very cool.
I've actually been sitting on a set of the Hearthkin Warriors, which is
I really like them.
Set.
Yeah, I think.
And I was just waiting for what they were going to do with Kill Team. I'm a little bit disappointed that...
for Kill Team or for Necromunda?
Well, it was for Kill Team originally. I was waiting for them to release the rules. Thought it was going to be a Warcom or White Dwarf release. But now I don't have that upgrade sprue. I might just have to turn them into Prospector squads instead.
I do think they're actually nicer than the Prospector minis.
Well, it was something that the club used that for their campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nath.
Did he?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I didn't notice. I played against them, but I was too busy smashing them. Sorry, Nate.
Poor Nath. Great guy.
No, he set me on fire lots, but then I webbed him lots. So yeah, it goes both ways. Yeah, it goes both ways. But what else got released at Adepticon? We had.
That's why I keep bringing up Age of Sigmar. Seraphon.
Oh shit! Yeah. So you mean Lizardmen?
Lizardmen.
Yeah. So why are they called Seraphon? Is that just like a?
There's a new name.
It's an IP thing.
It's an IP thing, but in the lore, it's actually quite interesting because it's been so long, and it's the way they explain it is obviously language develops and changes.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where they got the other things from. So there actually are people that had that original words. And I know it is a thing like that. With the copyright and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's that, but it's I'm constantly reminded by everybody because I'm getting older that language changes and evolves, and that I can't say the things that I want to say all the time.
Back in my day,
people get offended, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't know why they called Seraphon.
What are they? Raptor Riders, though. The new minis are released. Yeah. I've got no idea on their lore-specific set.
Lore-specific, they're very interesting. They actually started out as demons, which was interesting. They had a demon keyword, yeah. So they're actually not demons in terms of that. They don't have it anymore, that keyword. But it was one of the interesting parts of the lore was they're actually kind of like beings of otherworldly.
I'm not having that.
It's interesting. They're not actually demons. They're not actually demons. They're kind of in the realm of things.
Yeah.
Kind of that. So they're not actually. It's not like another god. That's that sort of thing.
From the plane of scales.
That doesn't exist anymore. So you can calm down.
But it does exist.
No.
It's called Malal. He's the 5th chaos god.
He's the chaos of chaos.
Yeah, it was the anti-chaos. Yeah, it was cool. He still exists in my heart, even if the Games Workshop's forgotten about him.
I like him.
Cool.
I almost made a whole my army about him. That was good.
Iron Warriors could be Malal.
It could be.
You never know. Chaos Undivided. Anyway, you're talking about Seraphon. Sorry, I really interrupted you.
But the new minis are absolutely beautiful. They very much needed them.
They did, because they've always been really derpy.
Yeah.
It's particularly the skinks, if you ask me. They've got really funny little faces.
Yeah.
Like, hello.
Yeah.
They look like Harry Potter, don't they? Like they're real geeky looking.
Kind of cute, though, in a little way.
Well, the guy did it. Was it the winner of the Golden Demon last year who did the skink?
Yeah, it's
it's unbelievable.
A winner Golden Demon did a skink.
Yeah,
there's been a few Golden Demon entries which have been just real plain OG models, just painted to the next level.
It like almost has like the.
Is it? Which
I have the power with like
that's
the shiny thing at the top.
What is it? A shaman sort of thing?
No,
it's
just
like
a regular
skink
with a spear holding up in the air.
Sounds cool.
It's painted to that level of just. It's one of those ones where you look at it, you're like, it just looks really good.
I mean, I'll be honest. I've had my blinkers on when it comes to stuff like that. Like, it's just I see anything Age of Sigmar, I go, that's a nice model, and then I just scroll on past.
So I post on Reddit today with mocking up Escher and one of those skink. Sorry, one of the Seraphon models released from Adepticon, saying that's going to be their Ash Waste Rider.
Yeah, that's actually quite good.
Well, he's like, well, that's a nice dinosaur you got there, or something like that.
That's actually not a bad idea, you know. And you know, so far we haven't had a good Chimerix model either, because that Forge World one is atrocious. So you could use one of those as that as well, particularly the Velociraptor looking one, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
but when I was watching that though, they had the new Croxigors and stuff like that. But again,
the Croxes are nice.
My mind goes straight to the Blood Bowl as well for using those things as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they look fantastic.
Because just quickly about Blood Bowl, there was nothing at Adepticon about Blood Bowl, but Blood Bowl, oh mate, honestly, it's been the biggest love of my hobby life overall. I mean, well, actually, no, I'd say Necromunda is the biggest thing for me and has been the thing I've been most passionate about. But I've played more Blood Bowl than I've played anything else. I've played probably hundreds of thousands of games of Blood Bowl, I reckon. Like, whether it's online, whether it's on Fumble, which is like the Java client version of, played a lot of that, or whether it's been on board games and in tournaments and things like that. But the current iteration of the game, I just can't get into it. I don't know what it is, but like since the new rules got released with the nobles and stuff, the models have got even more sort of silly and comical.
It's been a long time since the nobles came out in the recent Blood Bowl.
Well, that's new for me. That's new. I'm talking. Yeah, it is. I know you're right. I'm old. But
no, I see. I came into. I love Blood Bowl as well, so I played a couple of seasons already. I love it. Yeah. And surprise, surprise, I play Khorne.
What?
There seems to be some kind of ongoing pattern with my armies of choice.
The same bloodletters to see you just
maybe
like blue
no.
Oh
no, they're just the actual people. Yeah, but they're all got frenzy, which is kind of like you get yourself in danger with that.
Well, I don't know if they've changed the rules a lot from the CRP version that I was playing, but they were interesting back then. They had a Bloodthirster though; they don't have them anymore.
No, but you've got Bloodspawns.
Bloodspawn. Which new name? Like, this is the thing. I feel like it's slightly crossed into Age of Sigmar realms with the names and stuff.
Because literally,
it's the names though.
It's what's it? Scala Angrif. What's his name?
Scala Affingrim. Anfingrim.
Yeah, it's essentially one of those.
Yeah, I know. Skylar.
It's just a non-named one.
If
I'm being
kind of like grimdark to a game
said
around multiple races in a fantasy world playing Gridiron.
Yeah, but
like there's a level of camp.
Yeah, but it's not law specific. I'm not feeling the law.
You're quite right. And actually, what got me into
Silliest part of the
Blood Bowl when I was a kid is that I was a kid and I didn't really get Dark Future and I didn't really get Confrontation. I didn't really get Rogue Trader. It was actually too grown up for me. So Blood Bowl was a good access point to get into that because it did have Pete Nifton. Shout out to Pete Nifton, who I'm probably going to try and interview on here, actually. He did a lot of the illustrations for the second edition Blood Bowl. I think second edition, maybe even some of the first edition as well. And those illustrations were quite comedic and got me into it through the illustrations. You'd know the illustrations if you've seen them because they're classic.
Oh, yeah, no. The
black and white.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And yeah, the comical value of like his orcs and things like that was kind of what got me into Blood Bowl, I suppose, in a way. So you're quite right. Yeah, maybe I should be expecting less.
I think
less,
but I feel like it got
different.
just a little bit too silly.
No,
it was silly, but then it got really silly.
That's the best part about it. Like little things like I got the box of the corn, which is great, and you open up the tab, and on the tab is a little box with the corn symbol on it, and there's popcorn in it.
Actually,
yeah, and it's little things like that. So it's popcorn.
Well, I was going to make a joke about actual corn.
No, it's actually hidden in there. You've got the what's the magazine they always release, the fake ones? What's it called?
Spike magazine.
Spike magazine. And so the one with corn and all that is in there. And there's a section dedicated to puppy doggos, the corn dog. What are they called? I play
flesh
corn.
hounds.
Flesh hounds. And there's actually like puppy flesh hounds in there. They've got the same things the old ones where at the back it has like a comic where it has like a whole sequence of like obviously them playing a game and all these little bits in there. So I think they're just leaning into it. They're like, at the end of the game, Blood Bowl's a silly game.
Yeah.
It's a silly game. I think they're just leaning into it.
I
I think
have fun.
and that's the whole point. And because you're doing a game where you're just rolling like both down, like I'm like, oh crap, my entire turn's ruined because now I've just done the down. Like great.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like this treatment, there's like even the back old games that had those silly things.
I think it's just bitterness on my part because I loved the game so much for so many years and I put so much time and effort into running leagues, running tournaments, I was really involved in the game in general. And then what happened is I went to one or two tournaments in a row where I just did really, really badly in these tournaments. And normally I don't. Normally I'm quite a competitive player. I'm okay at chess. Chess was what got me into Blood Bowl, and in a way they're quite similar. The trouble with Blood Bowl compared to chess, and I like to draw the comparison, is that Blood Bowl, if you make a mistake in chess, it's your own damn fault. You've got no one else to blame. If you make a mistake in Blood Bowl, it doesn't matter how perfect you played, a 1 is a 1. And it's like, so merciless that it's so brutal. Like you could play the most perfect game of your entire Blood Bowl career, and I've lost just going for it into the end zone to win a 2-1 grind in a final. You know what I mean? Like it happens, and it's so brutal. It just makes you want to cry.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah, it is. It is also the best part about it, unless you're that person. And then when it happens too many times, you just go, "Fuck this!" Like this is so brutal. Like it's.
Well, sounds like you really got burnt by these 2 tournaments, man.
Yeah,
I did. I think
it's like a tournament problem because
I'm wounded. I'm morally wounded.
I think you need some healing.
I need some healing. Do you know what I need to do? I need to play Blood Bowl again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with doing the tournament scene is sometimes you can take the game a little bit too seriously, and it takes away. Again, you're like, Blood Bowl is not too silly, and it's not serious enough.
The difficulty with Blood Bowl is that you can be a very good Blood Bowl player. Like there are levels of player. Like similar to chess in a way. That even dice aside, probability aside, you
competition games.
Yeah, true.
Like any competition game.
I guess it's the same with 40k, things like that as well.
You can be competitive in Necromunda, and that's the most narrative game there is.
Yeah,
I suppose you could.
Some people try to be a little bit too competitive.
Yeah. But I definitely enjoy not being competitive in games because I get too stressed out, too worked
Kill
up.
Team's highly competitive game.
Is it?
Yep, and that's very much the space it's driving in.
Yeah.
It's not about the narrative at all. There is narrative there. I've played a narrative campaign. That was a bit of fun.
But the tools aren't there. It is all about the game in general, which you're playing against someone else.
Yep. It's all about, they're trying to keep those teams as balanced as possible.
But the difference is it's got the rule set to back it up.
Yeah.
So it is made for that kind of thing. So you can prep for things. You can do things like that. You're not relying on rolls to get you through certain things. But things like Blood Bowl and what I got into Necromunda was I was after a Blood Bowl that was a skirmish game where you can go like, I've got all this set up. I've blown myself up. Or really, my best example, my first game I ever played of Necromunda was I had my sniper shoot over the shoulder of my side guys and try to shoot. Missed. I'm like, but he was in the angle thing. So I'm like, then after roll a 6, I think the rule was if you hit someone in your own...
To hit your own guy.
Hit my own guy. Like,
well, we changed the rules on that.
Yeah, we changed the rules.
Before,
It was 50-50. That was brutal.
Yeah, that was brutal. But then that, and as soon as you got hit, rolled again, skull. So then one of the first time I'm ever using a sniper rifle, and I kill my own side guy with a single shot.
Yeah, there is that too.
But the thing is, that happened to me, and I'm like, this is the best game I've ever played.
Yeah.
And it's about the atmosphere when you're playing that game, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the mark of you being a mature person, I suppose, and just going, you know what, this is fun. Like, it's cool. It's just a game. Like, if you can do that, great. And I just can't do that with Blood Bowl. Yeah. I don't know what it is about Blood Bowl, but I could never. I feel like Kill Team
has that competitive underlying tone.
Yeah.
You can still have fun games, definitely. But you're still playing to win.
I think you've also gone through a community of playing to win, and that's the...
True. And I think the New Zealand Blood Bowl quality level is actually really, really high. There's some fantastic players in New Zealand, which is a tiny place. I could never compete against the best ones, but I was always there or thereabouts. But I think that's the thing is, everyone else is doing it, so you do it too.
Just play stunty team, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well,
that's where the fun comes.
We created a sort of fun league in Fumble, which was kind of like Secret League. Do you know about Secret League?
No.
We'll talk about Secret League in a upcoming podcast, perhaps.
Stay tuned.
For now, I don't think we've got time for the Secret League. But Secret League is really cool. It's like about 100 new teams that are outside of the current Blood Bowl rosters that are just available on Fumble. So check out Secret League, Rob. Did we miss anything else at Adepticon? I think we covered everything.
Sigma, Underworlds.
Yes.
Team.
10th edition.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, what as a 40k player, are you a 40k player? Not really. You're a 40k player.
I'm very much a 40k player.
I will be a 40k player if they change the mechanics so that it's not just fucking. I'm gonna spend 2 hours moving an entire army.
Oh,
thank you.
Speaking of, they are changing that.
Are they though?
Yes.
And stratagems. I know they're changing stratagems.
Yep. So stratagems are limiting it down to just 6 per thing, and which is I've loved as a Demons player. The recent codex is if you played one god, you literally had 6 stratagems. One of them was just for like an extra relic, and the other one, and they're all just for specific things. So it's not like a thing where like, well, I'm using this stratagem and this stratagem, so now I'm hitting on 2s and wounding on 3.
Sorry, for the novices here, stratagem, tactics card, similar thing? Like a little extra...
Imagine in Necromunda, you had your cards, you had all your cards, but you could see them all and know what they were. And instead of putting the card down and using it, you had points. And so you could spend 2 points to use one of the cards at any time, but you could always use that.
So you have command points depending on how your army's constructed.
Yeah,
it's funny because
it's same as Kill Team. Kill Team has that. Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah, right.
So stratagems are just built up. So essentially what's happening is the Demons one, they've done that, and I think that was almost the test run for them to do that. And that worked really... the best thing about it is like everything was built into the data thing. There's no sneaky things. There's no like 3 pages of strategy you need to remember or rules you need to remember. It's all on there.
So bloated.
So bloated.
So what are they doing instead? They're keeping it really...
So essentially what they're trying to say is your entire army would be, like all your rules would be pretty much on 1 or 2 pages. That's it.
That's how
it looks like a Kill Team card.
There is a reason why there are rule sets called 1-page rules.
Yes.
For that exact reason, because the bloat.
Yeah.
Rules bloat.
Well, again, I keep bringing up Age of Sigmar. But one of the things people see the game and hate it because they go like, oh, it's so simple. Like there's no toughness. There's nothing like that. What it gets down to is you're thinking less about the things like, well, your toughness 5, I'm shooting on strength 6, so I should be hitting on 3s, and you're doing all this math in your head. Rather than worrying about that, you're looking at the larger battlefield and actually thinking of how everyone's moving around rather than thinking about the small things. So you actually get to more... The strategy part is then the larger scale rather than the minute things. And that's where the fun part. I can see the
appeal, I think. And it's just like, if you're used to playing one game more than any others, then coming into that, you're like, oh, this is a bit lacking, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you just got to get your head around new systems.
It's just, like I said, it's a new system plays differently. I think when you start playing a new game, expecting the old different game, I think that's when you have a bad time.
Right.
And I'm a person I've dipped my toes in so many different game systems by now. But
and what's great about doing this podcast with both of you is that I'm deliberately doing research now and actually playing other stuff than Necromunda. Like I said, I played Battlefleet Gothic last week, and I want to play everything at some point. And do a bit more research on it and stuff, to be honest. But it'd be interesting to see how 40k develops and whether it will actually take a leaf out of maybe Necromunda's book in a certain degree. The problem is with the old... So that
What the rules they've kind of hinted at now is they're taking, I think, a leaf out of the new 30k rules, where it's no longer a situation of, so kind of like you're able to react in the other person's turn.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's one of the...
what's the point in 30k if you've got...
Because they're two completely different games.
10,000 years, that's the point.
Because the other ones, I mean, they're completely different rule sets. They're completely different. It's like, it's almost like sitting there going like, why would you play Necromunda when there's Kill Team?
Yeah.
They're completely different games, even though there's kind of the basic ideas about the same. Like you're hiding behind cover, you're moving around, you're shooting. It's more the same kind of concept, but they're completely different games. It's the same. 30k is more narrative driven.
Yeah,
it's not full competitive. It's all about like setting up the scene and the way you still got like the front panels offensive.
Very much like a historical reenactment.
Yes, someone actually said it's the historical battles for 40k fans or 30k fans.
Cool.
That's cool. Horus Heresy is something we need to probably talk about at some point as well. Actually, even though it is a full blown war game, I haven't played any of it at all. I haven't even played the last edition either. But I've definitely had an interest in the Horus Heresy novels. Read all of them. I've read all of them, in fact.
All of them?
All of them. I've read every single Horus Heresy novel, I believe.
There's one that just came out recently.
The newer ones, yeah.
Except the one since...
I think there's one that came out like last week or something like that.
So I haven't read the Siege of Terror ones, but I read all the normal ones.
Yeah.
And some are great, some are, I'm sorry, but some are dog shit. But some are really, really good.
I mean, when you release how many books is it?
Oh, fucking loads.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have some hit or misses.
Do you guys read Black Library stuff? Do you read Black Library stuff?
I'm trying. So my thing the last couple of years, I've tried to get to reading again. I never really used to do it, but I've read the first 2 books now of the Horus Heresy and getting back into it, sort of thing.
Yeah, cool.
But but in terms of lore wise, I read up everything and I want to know everything. But the narrative wise, I love. My main army really kind of 40k is Iron Warriors.
Yeah,
and
the
so
most boring of all.
The best one, the best. Okay. But Storm of Iron, I read that
reading
book.
it right now.
It's just one battle. It's fantastic.
By Graham McNeil?
No, it is. Maybe it is Graham McNeil.
It's Graham McNeil.
Maybe.
Really good book. Highly recommend. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
We should do some book reviews on here as well. Well, not reviews, but just
But because as a person, as I said before, I want to get into more reading. If this is an excuse to read a book, I will read a book.
And I've read a lot of Black Library books, I'll be honest. I'm constantly reading them. But I'm reading that book at the moment. I'm sort of halfway through it, and I'm actually really liking it. And I don't like the Iron Warriors before. Before reading this book, I didn't really like them. But now I quite like them. They're kind of cool. And do you know what? The reason why I read it is because I'm a Minotaurs fan. Like, Minotaurs are if I had to pick a Space Marine chapter, it's Minotaurs. That's it. I'm just throwing that out there. If I ever play 40k again, I have an entire Minotaurs army that I collected and never used.
So when you play 40k in the next edition,
I will. I'm sure I will. But
in 3 months,
the reason why I said that is that there's a lot of stuff to suggest that Minotaurs come from the gene seed of Purty, I believe, or maybe even Angron, or both. But Purdy seems the most.
He's the most level-headed.
Yeah. Do you know about all this?
Not
this is all straight over your head.
Totally over my head.
Fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, the Minotaurs are one of the newer chapters, I suppose. Not a first founding chapter or anything like that. But they don't know who the gene seed is. They're basically controlled by the Lords of Terror, which is really cool. The Lords of Terror use them as they're almost like bailiffs. They are sent out to bring down other Space Marine chapters. So they're better equipped than all the other Space Marine chapters. And they've got the best chapter master out of all the chapter masters. And I won't be swayed on that.
Not a biased opinion at all.
There's a book that I read actually by Chris Raitt called Watchers on the Throne. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't. I know the title though.
I've read the second book has Minotaurs in it. And there's one bit in it where one of the Adeptus Custodes, or whatever they're called, Custodes? Yeah, the ones that Henry Cavill plays. One of those guys sizes up Asterion Moloch and goes, do you know what? I don't think I can beat this guy. And it's like, it's the coolest moment because it's the only time that this like absolute hard bastard looks at a guy who's not on his level at all normally and goes, nah, I don't want to fight this guy. Like, he's genuinely terrifying. Like, I think he might beat my ass. That's kind of cool. So that's why I like Minotaurs. But yeah, there you go. But yeah, back to what we were saying about 40k.
Essentially, their next edition. Yes, as we go, they're adding things like reactionary things, so things where you constantly are playing. It's not a situation, which I kind of like at the moment, where it's like, oh, your turn. Do you want a beer? Because I'm going to go to the toilet, and let me know if I need to roll for anything. It's now becoming a situation where you can react when they're doing things.
Yeah, you want to be engaged.
Yeah, you want to be engaged. And they're changing how things work. I think they're getting rid of a lot of the... Apparently, they're starting off their thing with, like, as it happens with every edition, lower the, like, damage, lower the AP, lower all those things, at least then be level.
But up the toughness?
Up the toughness.
Up the toughness.
They're also going with a different approach when it comes to rules.
That's what happens when they change editions.
Yeah. But,
otherwise, it'd be the same edition.
not the rule set.
How do you mean?
How people access them.
Yes. Oh, for now.
For now. Very different change. All digital, all public.
Well, for
when it gets released.
Is that for everything, though? Because, because isn't that just the index?
I think they're saying everything you need to play.
Yes, that's the index, I think. I may be wrong.
I don't know what index means.
Oh, so essentially in the 7th edition, I think it was, or maybe the start of 8th edition, what they did is they changed the rule set so much that your previous rules aren't going to make any sense. And so released these books called indexes, and all they were was like rules for every single army in these books. And it's kind of very general. Everyone had these basic rules and stuff like that. For the new edition, everyone's getting their rules for free. And that's what that is. I think it's an index.
Because the way it sounds like is those stat cards.
Yes.
They would all be out there.
Yeah.
And then point and costs.
Yeah.
What else is there?
I mean, there's tons of... I suppose it doesn't... I suppose depending how they work with the new edition, I don't know. But at the moment, there's like... You've got your stratagems, you've got your like legion rules, you've got your relics, you've got your warlord traits.
Yeah, okay. I'll be interested to see because it did...
Too much stuff.
But again, how they're changing that then is going the Age of Sigmar route of the sub-factions. So you have like, these are the main one of these rules, but here's 4 different variants of them that have their own little sections. You're like, So it's kind of like, I guess you could say, successor chapter. Like, here's 4 successor chapters to these things. These guys work a little bit. They kind of do it at the moment with the Flesh Terrors, where they have slightly different rules to Blood Angels, and that's their own thing, and they have their own little flavour of that kind of legion. Yeah. I think that's the route they're going. So there's like, here's these 4 different sets of rules. So here, these guys have their own page, and I think that's what we're talking about, 2-page rules in terms of the armies. It's like, here's this one legion, here's this other one. 2 pages.
Which will soon be 3 and then 4.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Weren't those stratagems meant to be built into the units?
Well, that's what's happening now. So they're
therefore,
moving.
they wouldn't be extra. That's
How
what
do
I'm
you
saying.
know all this?
Just from the stream.
Just the stream.
Yeah.
Was it? I didn't see any of that.
Well, they talk about it. There's been discussions.
You're too busy working.
Yeah, I read the article.
And I still stand by with the demon one. I think that's what they were testing the things. Because what happened is they removed a lot of the rules that were in stratagems with the demons, and they're all built into the units now. And so things like, +1 to hit. I'm like, now this is this little hero character. So if he's near someone, he can just tell them, all right, you're +1 to hit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So and then I think then it makes heroes be heroes. Well, that sort of thing like that.
What I would like, I don't know how it would work actually because I haven't given it much thought. But what I would like in 40k is for it to be, alternate activation per squad, so or something like that. I just think it would be really cool to just do a bit more back and forward, a bit more dramatic, I suppose, in that way. But I guess you've played the bigger games, you've played Age of Sigmar, and if it works and the mechanics are good, then copy that a little bit. Yeah, I suppose. Anyway, we're talking about 40k again. We shouldn't be doing this.
I know.
Last couple of things released at Adepticon were Termies. And
Terminators, yes.
Terminators and
they look
Termagants.
very nice.
And they can be used in Kill Team, so we can talk about them.
Termagants, I think.
Termies.
We've got termies on both sides.
Yeah.
Yes,
Termies and termies. They look pretty cool. Made the old ones look a little bit funky, didn't it?
Well, they're basically just sized up. That's it. They've put hip plates on them, and they've put slightly different leg armor. But other than that, they're exactly the same. They actually look like the Space Hulk reissue that was a few years back. They look like those guys.
But could you do anything else to Terminators? They're so iconic.
They are iconic, yeah. I would definitely get some and make them bronze.
So what I really hope, especially with the Gallo Dark, which is the Kill Team, which is the boarding action equivalent, like the Somatalis stuff.
Which is ending, by the way. This is
the end of the season, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the end of the season, yeah. They're doing that because that's the thing with most of the games now.
Into the Dark.
Into the Dark was the first one.
The interior mechanic, as in like the. How do you call it? Into the Dark? I think it's the format. I think that's technically the name of the format.
Into the Dark.
Or is it?
Yep. It was also the release of the first box in the season.
Then it was Gallo Dark.
Now Gallo Dark is the spaceship.
Isn't that the Gallo Dark's the spaceship? Then it was Shadow.
Fucking,
I don't know.
Everything's dark.
Anyway,
It's a grim, dark Gothic future. It's not a grim, bright future.
That format is going to
continue.
continue.
Cheer up, Goth.
As in Kill Team inside space ships. That's not going anywhere. That's going to continue.
Right.
But the season is wrapping up.
Yeah.
So chances are they will put the setting somewhere else. And I'd say my 2 cents is tied into the 10th release.
100%. And I think
Jungle or some shit like that.
Also linking the narrative, I think I've enjoyed that, the whole thing with
Jungle or some shit. Cue Catachans.
I've appreciated at least the narrative 40k has been linking both into Kill Team and the big game. Because the whole thing of these space hulks going out through everywhere and the Kill Team is exploring those space hulks. And
but the whole time, where's Space Hulk?
Where's Space Hulk?
Where the hell is Space Hulk? Because I love Space Hulk.
I have no idea. I think everyone saw the box sets and assumed they were going to be bringing out something with the rules or equivalent of.
The first edition of Space Hulk was gangster.
Oh, it's great. I've had a game of that recently down at the club.
I wouldn't be surprised if it shows its head in some sort of reincarnation with Warhammer Quest.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like that could be the format.
I
it'd be a different style of game.
What they did with Blackstone Fortress.
Yeah, a little bit like that.
I reckon they're holding off until they release these new Terminators. Yeah. And that'll be the next. Because it's been what? There was a few year gap, like 3-year, 4-year gap between the Warhammer Quests.
Oh, wait a second. They need new Gene Stealers as well, so that'll probably be the
well, it's Tyranny is releasing now, so why can't they release?
I don't. There'll be Gene Stealers in that pack.
They said that
Gene Stealers are part of Tyrannies, though.
They're not in that video.
No, but down the track. They're still going to be able to. They're going to release these things.
I don't think they'll be in the 40k box set.
Oh no! God no!
They said that this is going to be their biggest year ever for Tyranids. Going to be releasing a shitload new models.
Well, that's great if you like Tyranids.
I think they're kind of they're very alien. I like the alien.
Cool. Cool.
They are aliens.
Yeah.
There is that.
They're not one of the few that aren't like they're not bipedal.
Terminators in Kill Team. It's got to be a squad of 3.
What?
Yeah.
3
or max.
3 guys.
Yeah.
Just for the as in the power curve.
Kill Team.
You have a team of 5 normally.
Kill Team is
like
6 Marines. That's it.
6 Marines, and that's like an elite team.
That's an elite team.
Custodes when our first release were 3.
3.
Average team, like a middle team, is 10, and then you got like a horde style team, which is like 12 or 13. But they kind of minimize those a bit.
Okay. Well, I need to play it. I need to figure it out.
Like I said, you only need 6 models.
Well, I've got loads of Minotaurs I could use.
I've got a lot of Kill Teams.
Oh, let's play Kill Team.
Yeah.
There we go. Date. It's a date.
I got the cards. Got the things.
Okay, we're good to go then.
There we are.
Yeah. Awesome. What else are we going to talk about on this episode?
That pretty much covers it.
I think it pretty much covers it.
Like it's
what are
episode 0.
What are you guys excited about exploring on this podcast? Because I, for one, I'm really looking forward to going back and doing some of the lore and history on some of the older games. I've already sort of planned something on Dark Future for episode 1, which is going to be interesting. Dark Future was almost a precursor to Ash Waste's mechanics for Necromunda. So I would say it was, I'll talk about it in more detail in the next one, but I'm really looking forward to getting into that. Otherwise, there's a few games that I really want to rediscover and play again if I can, whether that means forking out on eBay for very rare and old miniatures, old Hammer miniatures, or going down the 3D printing route, I suppose, and trying to find miniatures for them. But I think the thing that we're probably wanting to play soon is, we're going to do a new Necromunda campaign here, but we're also trying to do a Mordheim campaign as well, sort of simultaneously, and I think that's going to be quite difficult to do both at once. But
probably after, I think.
Yeah, probably after.
About halfway through printing a board, though, so by the time the campaign finishes, there'll be a 4x4 done.
But we've played a couple of practice games of Mordheim, and it's it's good getting back into that as well. But there's a couple of games that I really want to play. Man of War being one of them. Do you guys know what Man of War is?
Man of War, living on the road.
There's that. There's also a band called Man of War as well, I believe. A band called Man of War, I think there is. But the game was
that was the lyrics to Man of War.
The game
Ship
was
battles?
Yeah, so it was basically Battlefleet Gothic for Warhammer Fantasy. So it was on the high seas of the fantasy world. It was really cool. You had ships, and I remember the game being really, really fun and enjoyable.
When did it come out? Before Battlefleet
90s,
Gothic?
maybe.
I remember when Gothic
90s.
came out. I was into the hobby.
It was before Battlefleet Gothic, I think. But we're going to explore that as well. But I want to actually play a game because it would be really cool. I did play Battlefleet Gothic the other day, and I'll be honest, it wasn't quite as good as I remember it. It was too clunky. It's a bit too. was a bit too rules dense for me. Like once you get the hang of it, it was cool. But I'd like to play a couple more games to really reserve my judgment until I've played a few more games. Yeah. How about you guys? What were you looking forward to playing and hobbying and things?
Well, I think my thing is just discovering a lot of these games, like hearing things about Mordheim. I don't think I'll ever play it. I like the idea of it, but I like hearing about it, hearing about the lore behind it. Things like Gorkamorka.
Yeah, Gorkamorka was great.
I think like kind of a lot of the old games where they're kind of precursors to how things evolve. And I think I grew up on Hero Quest, and
who didn't?
I know, it's amazing.
And Space Crusade. Yeah.
But like discovering those things, and like obviously I find that very interesting, and that'll probably be an episode talk about Warhammer Quest and how that evolves. I think that'd be interesting. But I like seeing the evolution of things and how they come to be and where their origins are and things like that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, cool. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, Mordheim definitely has a place, I think, in my nostalgic heart I really want to dive into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like that peak grimdark, adolescent kind of mingling where it's just like, oh, this is amazing. Kind of opened my mind to a different take on fantasy.
Yeah, it really is. And that Mordheim kind of encapsulates that whole what's the word? Just the aesthetic, the grimy grimness of that aesthetic. And Mordheim was that in its absolute essence. Yeah, like as well. Ian Miller and John Blanche, basically those two guys. Like that, Mordheim was like the living like world of them. It's hard to explain. I've lost my words, but it's
so definitely, yeah. Even from the artistic side, the creativity side, I really want to dive deep into that.
Definitely.
Other games, though, yeah, I really want to see what Warcry is about.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to playing Warcry, but for me, Kill Team and Warcry are on the top of my list right now. Warcry even more so, I'd say. Yeah. Well, there we go. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that was enjoyable for you guys out there. We are going to be doing some competitions in future as well. Some of those competitions will be Patreon only, should I say. So do get involved in Patreon / Wellywood Wargaming. And yes, please do continue to support us so we can do more of this. But we're looking at doing an episode probably every month, diving into some of the games that we just mentioned, and some of the hobby outside of that, and the community as well, exploring the wider community and its artistic influence as well. I think whether it's illustration, whether it's world building and rules, mechanics, things like that. There's so much going on out there. Just in Necromunda alone that I've already talked about, but it'd be even better to sort of open it up into the other systems that people are so passionate about as well, and particularly things like Mordheim and the other things that we've been talking about as well. But I think that's it for now. Anything else to add, guys?
No. I'm just glad there's a Chaos Gang in Necromunda. I'm ecstatic and I can't wait for it.
There's about 30 in Warcry. There's 3, 4, 5 in Mordheim.
There's quite a few Chaos Gangs, man. Yeah.
I'm excited.
You are set.
Maybe we'll do a Chaos episode at some point as well. But anyway, I think that's it for now. So that'll be us until a few weeks' time, I suppose. We'll be back with a more constructed and slightly more regimented episode of actual real stuff. It isn't just all over the place. Like I said, this is episode 0, so it's just getting comfortable with who we are, and hope you enjoyed it very much, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Peace out.